Hey guys, it's Lauren Lando. Another episode of the Roundtable Discussions with ESS. I'm excited today to bring the most enthusiastic, most passionate practitioner out there, Steve Hess. He is currently the strength and conditioning coach for the Denver Nuggets. Just finished up his 19th season and he's going into his 20th season, which is amazing in pro sports. Steve, so awesome to have you on. Man, why don't you give our viewers just a little bit of a brief background on you, how you got into the field, maybe the steps it took you to get to where you are today.
Okay, firstly, blessed to be on here. Really appreciate the opportunity. Going to give your viewers some insight into you and I. We started about 22 years ago. We ran a combine for a lawyer together. And I remember distinctly, we're training the one guy and you're like, Steve, you got to take it easy on his calves. Man, look, I trashed his calf so bad. My wife's giving birth the next day. He comes to the hospital to get a stretch, and I should have listened to you. So that's some insight into you and I. I have a ton of respect for you. I think you do an amazing job, and I think you're one of the best practitioners in the field. So glad to be on the show. I've had an amazing road, and I'm pretty much just lucky to be where I am. But the single most important thing I feel that's accompanied me through the journey is my passion. I live for this stuff. I'm geeked about it. When I talk about it, I go to bed, I'm thinking about it. I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about it. I hire people that are better than me in certain aspects. I want to be challenged the whole time. I do continuing education all the time. And the cool thing about it is, I've been in the field close to 30 years. I know I look good for 70, but so I've been here 30 years, and the more I learn, the more I realize the least I know. And the cool thing about that whole thing is it's an ongoing expedition. And we're dealing with these great things called bodies and minds and things like that. We're giving back to these people, so it's a huge responsibility that you've got to be accountable for. So my path, I have an undergraduate degree in cardiac rehabilitation. I have a master's degree in sports medicine. I'm also MAT certified, as you are yourself, and I just completed my mastery certification. I'm doing a resistance training specialist mastery certification, in the process of doing that. And Tom Purvis, every time I go there, it's like I've never felt dumber. Yep. And I sit in his class and I listen to this cat and he's like, really, Hess, you're going to ask me that question? And I'm like, yeah. So it's really humbling. But again, I love to be humbled. A lot of the things I do are outreach programs where I go into the community and do things. And then I'll do other things where I'll give presentations out of the realm of what I do, solely because I have to think through the process. And it puts me on the spot.
Love it.
And a lot of times I just do stuff because I purely don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it, and that's why I do it, because it makes me more rounded.
Love that. You know, it's funny. Anytime I lecture at a conference, one of the first things I say to the audience, I say, who in here presents? And maybe 0 practitioners put up their hand. And I say, you owe it to yourself and your athletes, because you owe it to your athletes to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, just like you ask them to do all the time. Every time we ask them to compete, we're asking them to do that. So I love that. I love the fact that you say you want to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and see ultimately how you respond to it. And the fact that you continue your education so much. I saw all the posts with you going through the MAT and now through RTS. And I went through the MAT and RTS process and agreed. Like, you walk out those weekends, you're like, wow, I don't know a thing. But talk about giving you a new perspective, because at the end of the day, it's evolution. Yep. It's evolution and how we evolve as practitioners. Awesome, Steve. Well, that's a great way to start things. So let's talk about before you became the Nuggets strength coach, what were you doing?
Okay, so again, I'm just, it's one of those journeys where it's like sometimes I pinch myself and how did I get here? Mm-hmm. So I finished my undergraduate degree at Ithaca College, upstate New York, and I'm just letting you know, when I rolled there, I'm from South Africa, and I'd just been in Cape Town, came back from the summer, and I didn't even know about the weather over there, and I landed like in the middle of a winter in Ithaca, New York, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And my dad came with me, and he was just laughing. He's like, yeah, I'm going to see you in 6 months. And it was kind of one of those where it's like one of those things, I really just want to stick this through because I want to do exercise science. I was blessed to be in the program. I finished my undergraduate degree, and you have 1 year to do continuing education in the field that you're in. And I moved to Colorado. So I actually worked at a health club in Colorado, which I later ended up owning, but you only have a year, okay? After that year, I went back to get my master's degree, and then I moved back to Colorado. I worked at a health club in Denver Greenwood Athletic Club. And I think after 2 years, after 2 years I was a head trainer over there. So I was running the personal training program, and Jay Madden's done an unbelievable job, unbelievable club, just an amazing spot. And what ended up happening is Alan Bristow was the general manager of the Nuggets at the time. And he said that they wanted to hire a strength coach part-time who would also work for me as a personal trainer. So I'm like, oh, now I'm getting this job. It's like I've always wanted to work with professional athletes, right, and I'm getting this job. And I said to my wife, Alicia, I'm getting this. She's like, dude, what are you talking about? It's like, you know nothing about basketball. I said, but I can learn. So I'm like, go buy me Basketball 101. So I had that book with like Basketball for Dummies. And I'm going through this thing, and I'm like, I promise you I'm getting this job. I remember, and it's funny because I called Jim Gillen, who was a trainer at the time, every single day for like 3 months. Just lucked out, got the job, and been blessed enough to stay in the situation ever since.
Well, that's just it, and I think that's important for practitioners to understand in our industry. It's a couple things, and if you don't have the passion, you're not going to be persistent. And so for you, you're always bleeding with passion, and that's what I love. Well, your passion leads into that persistency, which a lot of people will say, they don't see, maybe they don't see the long term. They don't see the fact that they have the opportunity to get that job where you saw it and you said, you know what, I'm going to go get it. It is mine to get. And that's unique, because I think a lot of practitioners end up selling themselves short, and they don't go out there and attack and go after it. And so if you're running an organization, you want a guy like you to oversee that role of those players. You know day in and day out what you're going to give them. That is awesome. So give me an idea now.
Well, that's a brilliant point. So I have but here's the thing, it's got to be consistency. So you better understand, especially so once you get the job, you better not take a false set of ideas that you're presenting to them, because now you got to be that person.
Right.
So especially in the NBA, we're with our guys 9 months a year, every day. Sometimes we'll go 12 weeks straight because we do the rehab, things like that with our trainers and our PTs. But if you're not who you are, you better be careful. So the thing is, you got to be true to yourself. And exactly what you're saying. My assistant right now, who, oh my gosh, unbelievable. This guy is so smart, so just a legitimate. When it comes to the basketball specific stuff, I'm like, I don't even mess around. 6'7", knows how to play the game, knows the intrinsic ins and outs way better than me. So when we get to the point where we're getting a player closer to get on the court, just get with Felipe. These are some of the concepts. Felipe, do your thing. But how he got his job, same thing. He called me every day for 3 months, and I'm like, seriously, dude, you can't. He's like, look, I'll do anything. So I'm like, okay. I had him work in my gym for 2 years. He just worked in my gym for 2 years, killed it. Wow. Killed it. Every time I go in, my dude's upbeat. I don't care who he's working with, killed it. By year 3, I'm like, okay, come help me out. He's now been with me 5 years. I promise you, when he's a strength coach, look out. One of the best ever. This dude is ridiculous. But he knows every step. He knows the analytics that we're utilizing now, knows how to make a milkshake, knows how to do player development, and all because he's the real deal. The set of goods he sold me, man, I got it. Now, just like you, 2000, I get this resume and this excitement after day 4. My guy's late, just like it's not going to happen. So if you want to be in this field, understand it's a lifestyle. Understand if you're passionate, you truly love it, the best field. But if you're not, choose something else.
Exactly right. And I think that's the one thing that I see a lot of practitioners. I heard a stat that said most people that go into personal training or sports performance coaches, less than 1% of them make it to year 15 into their career. Because they've had some sort of bump in the road, pitfall, whatever, that's led them then into a different path. So that kind of was leading me into my next question. What kind of things do you look for in your assistant coaches? And obviously the passion and the persistency of banging down your door. I used to be a guy where early on in my career it was a resume thing. I would look at your resume, the resume looked good, and I was miffed by the resume multiple times in the hiring process. And then I started putting my hiring process of my interns and my assistant coaches based off how many times did you call me? How many times you stop by my facility? You have an internship for spring semester. Were you talking to me the summer before that? When did you start that process? And so I love the fact that all of us who've been in the game for a while, we kind of start to see what really it takes to be in this field, and it takes that long-term drive and passion. Okay, so now let's go on to this. Give me an idea of what a typical day looks like. I'm sure there is no typical day, but give me an idea of a day off season, give me a day in season, and some ideas about what you deal with travel-wise with the team that people wouldn't know, that I don't even know.
Okay. So I'll give you 2 days in season. So we'll go game day, non-game day. Say we go a practice day in season. Practice will generally start at 10. So we start either treatments or stuff in the weight room at 8 o'clock. So we got to be ready to roll about 7:30. So I'll be there at about 5 so I can get my workout in. What I found as well is you have to make certain sacrifices. So if you're preaching that everyone has to be in shape and everyone has to be the best they can, I highly recommend you live it. I'm just telling you. And then the routine that happens with, especially in the NBA, and how long and tedious it is, you can get out of that routine. So I don't. So there are times when I'll take a pre-workout with 250 milligrams of caffeine. Absolutely. But that's just that's what I do. At around about 7:30, I sit down with my assistant and we talk about a big game plan. This is what we're going to do. We've got 15 guys coming in. These are the injuries. This is what we're going to do pre-practice with our workouts on the guys coming in. This is the young guys. What we're going to do is a warm-up for the guys during practice. This is what we're going to do during practice with the guys that are not playing. Post-practice, who we're going to do. Then a lot of times, by the time practice winds down, treatments wind down, be like 12:30, 1 o'clock. A lot of times I'll do an appearance from 2 to 4, then I'll go home. By the time I get home, settled, it's already 6:30, and that's on a non-game day. Then we go into a game day, which could be the next day. So we have shoot around at 10, same procedure. We got to be ready to roll at 8 because guys come in early depending on where they're at. So same thing, again, where my lifting is or where my workouts are, get my lift in, everything ready to roll, 7:30, we ready to go. Guys come in at 8, and there are other auxiliary people that we train as well. We go to shoot around. Again, if we're rehabbing guys, if we're not after shoot around, we lift some of the guys before we do some prehab. Then what'll end up happening, that'll be done around 11:30, 12. Go get some lunch. We'll be ready again to roll at about 3. Guys start coming in 3:34, especially guys who are not getting minutes. We work them up all the way until about 5. That's when the team starts coming in. We get guys ready from 5 all the way until tip-off, which is at 7. Then we're in a game. We're at it now. So you better be ready to get these guys popped. So, something happens, we're getting them going. Sometimes the game goes until 10. No, it'll go about 9:30. Done with the game. A lot of times go back, make sure we replenish the glycogen store. Some guys we do some extra conditioning with. This rolls in. Now we may have to fly out that night and play another game the next day. So you better strap it on. Sometimes you'll have 4 games in 5 nights. In the lockout season, we'll play 3 games, day off, another 2 games, all in different cities. So it's like there are times where you just got to make sacrifices. But here's the thing, it's exactly what I told you before. If you've set a premise where I'm going to be the energy guy and I'm going to bring it every day, better strap it on, because I'm telling you, by month 5, when you get home, you didn't even play, and you lay on the couch and you can't move, it's like you better just stay with it. And that's what people don't really understand. A lot of times you cannot allow what people will perceive as a grind to pull you down. You just got to keep going the whole time.
Yeah, you just keep your blinders on and
get it done.
Keep grinding away.
And Lauren, you do, again, I'm going to reiterate the great job you do here, because again, I'm so blessed. I've been with this unbelievable organization, but I'm hired by the organization. And the great thing is I take huge pride in what I do. But a guy comes, we got a great draft pick last night. I'm saying he could be the best dude in the draft. I'm so excited.
Really?
Ridiculous. He's a stud. He's a genetic freak. 6'5", 6'9", dude, a freak. I'm so excited. But anyway, so these guys roll with me, and they're required to do certain things. Now, I'm not a huge believer in negative feedback. So if they don't, I take the onus upon myself to make them understand why it is we're trying to do what we're doing. I don't like to fine them. I just don't want to create that premise. They need to be accountable for what they're doing, and I have to try and sell that. But you have to resell to people who don't necessarily want to do this, and they got to keep coming back. And you have a ton of professional athletes, and I'm just telling you, I've worked with professional athletes, love them. A lot of times they want things for free. So you do an amazing job. And people get too enamored with the fact that I just want to work with professional athletes. Understand what it is you're doing with professional athletes. The great thing about professional athletes, as you know, they have much better compensation patterns. So it allows us more room to mess them up. But go get an 80-year-old who's had a stroke and try work with them. Now that is unbelievable work. You get slight dorsiflexion, but we get so messed up in this hype. We get on YouTube and we take pictures out. We're going to apply that to our workout. Apply what? You got to have a thought process. So you got to take a step back, and especially with a pro athlete, just understand what it is you're getting yourself into.
Well, that's awesome, because that's exactly what this kind of platform of ESS is.
Okay.
It's really to sit there and to get away from a little bit of that YouTube fascination of what exercise is the exercise of the week, the month. It's like, no, how do you start creating a system? And that system is going to be different for every individual that comes in front of you. And that's why we love having practitioners on like yourself who can speak to that. You're working with a specific group now, but you've done the general population, the whole gamut on the personal training side. So you understand the individual aspect that you need for somebody from the 80-year-old stroke, victim to, the 21-year-old draft pick or however old they are. You understand that you've got to do like specific different things based on what their capabilities are and what their limitations are. So that's exactly our platform. And that's why I just love your enthusiasm and your passion toward that subject. So okay, that's busy. So when you guys land 2, 3 in the morning. Will they have adequate sleep? Will they not? Will they? Okay. This is the stuff I love to hear.
So we're landing in Milwaukee. It's freaking 47 degrees below freezing. Who do you think loads the bags? Myself, my assistant, the athletic trainer, our PT, and the athletic trainer. We're in the thing loading the bags. And if it's a long road trip, we're chucking bags, and it's freezing freaking cold. We then go to the hotel. We wait until the bus arrives. We unload, tag all the bags to go to the hotel. Wow. Oh yeah, and then we won't go to bed sometimes 4 or 5 in the morning. Now, so people are like, wow, we've got to get adequate sleep for recovery and the pattern. I'm like, dude, come on. It's the same as about nutrition. If you've done this as long as I have, if you arrive in Milwaukee at 4 o'clock, where are you going to get some food?
Right.
And you haven't. So we do the best job we can, and we try accommodate as best we can for the players. But I'm just telling you, again, after a long road trip, I'm dead, and I didn't even play. So these athletes are unbelievable, and people are under the misconception they should be able to handle it because they make. I'm not even talking about how much money they make. They're still human beings with human bodies, and the schedule is grueling. You have to be mentally strong and things like that. But if people think it's all glamour, it really isn't. Now, here's the thing. Am I complaining? Never. Mm-hmm. This is what I've chosen, and I love it. And 98% of the things I do, I freaking love. Do I mind the other things? No, because it's part of what I do. So it doesn't bother me. But don't just think. People, again, it's just that we put on our white gloves and we sit there and we develop this program and we don't get dirty, and it's like, it doesn't work like that. And then again, when the stress, this is professional sports. So when you start to lose, things change. When injuries happen, things change. Mm-hmm. So if you're not thick-skinned and you're not adaptive and creative, you may not want to take the sport, because I'm telling you, after a year, you'll be like, I'm done.
Yeah. The Iceberg Phenomenon, meaning people watch you on TV, they see you on TV, they see you behind the bench, you're getting there, you're getting your guys hyped, you're animated, and they see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see everything under the surface that you've done. 1, to get there, but 2, to stay there, right? I always say it's easier to get invited to sit at the table than it is to stay at the table. And for you going into 20 years, I mean, talk about staying at the table. I mean, that is absolutely lights out. So, talk to me now. Okay, you said something about the lockout year.
Yeah.
During the lockout year, there had to be a rash of injuries based on lack of preparation and then density of games. Did you guys see that? Did you guys see it coming out? Not necessarily on your team, but just the league as a whole.
Here's, and this is right now, again, it's the great thing about me. So I go to a gym or another facility, and I'm doing my absolute best not to really look and judge what someone's doing wrong, but I have a tendency to look and see what they're doing better. And then if they're doing something wrong, as opposed to judge what they're doing, say, well, they probably prepped that individual perfectly so he can tolerate that. That's what I have a better idea of doing. So again, it's really within the parameters of a whole thing. If it doesn't have to do with our organization, I don't really want to, I just kind of want to say, like, let me get as much information as I can, then apply it to what it is I'm doing. But if you get too lost in the big picture, I feel you lose sight of what's happening right now.
Right.
So you have a tendency to bias towards trends as opposed to developing, as you said, your own dynamics or your own procedure in order to run this thing. So now, I definitely think you have to upgrade your thought process. If I did what I did right at the beginning, I'd be in trouble. But there's certain things that I did right at the beginning that still work. Absolutely. So you can't come in, and I'm just seeing a trend now where there's not a basic foundation of strength developed. So I think people go too much towards, and again, I'm generalizing, too much towards balance and things like that. And this whole premise of, if it's hard, it has to be good for you. And I'm like, really? And if it looks exciting, I mean, and I'm going to say this right now, if you're a practitioner, please leave your shirt on. This has got nothing to do with you. I'm just like, it's your athlete. So if I'm training an athlete, train the athlete. You know, if you have a great body, I love it. Right. But the thing is, if something worked for you, you may be a genetic freak. You got to develop what worked for the people you're working with. And it's not about us. It's about the athletes, or, you know what? The 80-year-old or the 40-year-old or the 60-year-old, they're the superstar. Take all your energy, put it into them, and don't worry about your outcome. Just do the stuff for the right reasons.
Exactly right.
So it rolls into, like, again, however, I remember George Cole will say to me, okay, we're going 7 weeks, we're not taking a day off. And I'm like, okay, it's now my job to encourage him while we got to get this done. But he's my head coach. I got to find a way where most people would just be, he said. I'm like, no, but that's what makes it exciting. So in the parameters of what we're doing, we try and upgrade as best we can. We stay on top of the research. Now here's the other thing. I have an unbelievable team, amazing team, and we all help one another. So once you have this amazing team, I figure we had one guy in today, Nurkic, 7-foot Bosnian beast, and I'm just seeing the functionality of hard work. We had him doing MMA because he had knee surgery, then we had our PT doing this and our massage therapist doing this, and then he rolled back in and we structured it all back into his strong and stable when he left. Just a great freaking day, but it was a one huge team, and no one was fighting for his time. It was like, okay, we're going from A, B, C, D, one reason, get you better. So that's kind of where we're pushing towards.
Well, that's great. The team approach within the team is critical. And I always say, if you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. And I think that's an issue that a lot of young practitioners have in our field, because the last thing they want to do is tell their client, their athlete, that I don't know this. I don't know how to do this. There's somebody better than me. And so they try to take it on themselves. Or they kind of turn their head to it, and then maybe a red flag starts popping up, or an injury and something like that could have been taken care of if they put the ego aside and said, you know what, let me refer you out to this guy. He's magnificent with soft tissue injuries, whatever the case may be. But all too many times ego gets in the way. That's awesome that you guys have kind of broken down the barriers and let the egos kind of be put aside. That's the only way the team can grow and get better.
But you do it here. So I know for a fact, again, my paths cross with a lot of the athletes you work with, and one athlete will work with 4 to 5 different coaches, so you do a great job. And I feel you've now come to the realization where, as I say, what's best for the athlete, and sometimes it's a different feel, a different look. So again, here's the thing, I'm so blessed to work with the greatest athletes on the planet, love that.
Absolutely.
But it's not about, he's not my guy, he's his guy. We're integrated to make the machine bigger, faster, stronger, and however we got to do that, that's all we got to worry about. The whole thing is, when he sees success, that's it. Go get success. You don't even need to say. And the other thing is, here's the thing, if you're going to put yourself out there, and if you want credit when you see success, that's cool. But where things go wrong, make sure you take the blame. That's all.
You got to take the bad with it. If you're gonna sit there and take all the credit, you're going to take the bad with it as well. So. Now, in basketball, we have a lot of practitioners that will watch this who are maybe new to the field, maybe they work with high school, college. What do you find are just the common injury patterns with basketball as a whole? Obviously, the pure volume of the sport, all the jumping patterns, the hardwood flooring. What are the things you see? I'm sure backs and knees obviously are consistent, and then some rolls of ankles, I'm sure. Is that about right, or is there some things I'm probably missing as well?
No, I think you see, and again, it's hard. Because of the size issue, you got to understand, you got a 7'1" guy, vertebra this big, musculature attached to it is a little bit different, and then you got to look at lever arms and how they do different things and how they move, and then again you have to understand the hammering on the body and how that occurs, and but then again, if you break it down even further, like if you look at the female relationship to the tibia, can they squat? No, but they're forced to get into a position where they fold it all the way down. Well, then you got to look at their back. I mean, there's so many ways. I mean, again, it's a common thing. It would be your ankle. Again, it would be your knees, and as you said, your back. And sometimes I think we're too apt to say, okay, we wouldn't look at glute med in men if they're having severe ankle injury. We go to where it is, and and I think we're doing a better job of looking at the broad surrounding back. We can't also lose sight, and this is what I think sometimes happens, of taking a specific system out of the system and getting that strong and then putting it back into the system, as opposed to trying to work this whole thing. So a lot of times, I think you got to, here's what I think. I think you have to be smart in your approach, and I don't think we're always smart, myself included. A great example is 98% of the time when guys play badly, A coach will generally say, let's shoot more. A strength coach will be, you'll be out of shape. So when's the last time, we're in March, he's been going since October. When's the last time we said, just take 2 days off? And I guarantee you, just because we feel, what do we need to do? I mean, I got a little 13, you got kids. My little 13-year-old's like, will never stop. He wants to run Red Rocks, then Dad, we gotta lift, then I gotta shoot. I'm like, dude, it's still a body. And I think sometimes we don't stop and say, okay, let's just take a look at the whole picture. We get so engulfed in it, just more, bigger, faster, stronger. I understand that, but if you don't take a good approach, that's what leads to injuries.
Love it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I'd imagine too, in the in-season modeling for you guys, it's got to be a lot of maintenance-based workouts, a lot of prehabilitative-based workouts, and a lot of just recovery strategies that you have to implement with all the back-to-back type games, the travel schedules, everything like that. Is that pretty accurate to say?
It is to a degree, but there'll be certain, the
certain
other
times
thing
where
is,
you can push.
Well, you also got to, again, I just feel that if a strong, stable body just puts you in a better position to succeed. And I think, again, there's certain concepts of MAT which I friggin' love, but I also think a body has to be loaded to understand what that load is going to be like. And I think a lot of times we have a tendency to pull back from load, especially in the season. Now, I'm not saying overwork, I'm saying appropriate work with the appropriate forces at the appropriate angles at the appropriate time. So this goes back to, I saw this on TV, it looks really, really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna load his back at this particular time, and I'm not gonna look at the relationships, different parts of your body. That's where problems arise. So it's like, are we doing a pre or post practice? So if we're gonna do a squat, leg press, and something else, or hanging clean, or however it forms into it, and then go do leg curls, do we not know we just put those at a freaking load in every exercise we did? Because these are things I think we gotta take accountability and say, okay, when, where, and how, really, really important.
Accumulation of stress is huge, and physical, emotional stress the body doesn't know. And I'm a firm believer that the body can't adapt to whatever stress we're putting it on until it's walked through the door of recovery. And I think all too many times, to your point, I've heard coaches of other sports, teams will go into a losing streak, and what they do, they bag skate them if they're a hockey team. They run, lines if they're a basketball team. They run gassers if they're a football team. Not sitting there saying, to your point, maybe they should just have some downtime, maybe a little recovery.
But I'm going to throw one more thing at you. Okay. So you got a Clydesdale. Freaking listen, man. You can take this horse, take him in the back, and run him to death. He's gonna, man, look, he'll keep running. Then you got a thoroughbred, and you touch the thoroughbred, and his glutes shut down. So why do we say the thoroughbred and the Clydesdale should both train the same way? So we're now gonna throw them into a practice setting, and I understand what it is we're trying to do, and we're gonna say, okay, I'm going to train you guys the same way. But one's a thoroughbred that after 35 minutes, he's a wrap. And the other guy can go 3 hours, but we're going to train him the same way. Makes no sense. The way we train animals is sometimes smarter. Now, I don't mean that in like, but I'm just saying we don't think through the process. So now we have analytics. So we use like a specific measuring system, which will look, it's a GPS.
Oh, good. I was about to ask
you. So how many times you go left, right, how many times you jump, and we're just integrating it. We'll utilize heart rate. It's not a great measurement because cortisol level changes just by a sip of coffee. So this is pretty cool stuff. And then you have instat stuff that you can get from the NBA, but that's non-directional. It's just straight lines. But it gives you a good idea about the physio load and workload and mechanical load, and you can adjust these certain things. Huge. It's not an exact science. But if you use that as a piece and you integrate the other pieces and you have a coach that's on board, it just gives you a slightly better picture to monitor the program.
Absolutely, trying to get as much information as you can to then let your eyes, your ears really tell you the complete story.
Exactly.
Love it. Love it. So you brought up a couple times, you talked about MMA, and I've seen some of your posts lately with the Red Rocks runs. Talk to us a little bit about some of the fun things you guys are doing with off-season training.
Okay, so again, I think we're trying to overload the system. And a lot of times if you, again, I love sports specificity, but here's my thing. The best thing for sports specificity is to play that sport. So if I want to get better at basketball, the skills of basketball, I got to play basketball. If I'm a fighter and I want to go and do some MMA, you better roll in and you better fight.
Right.
So I understand that. So the thought process behind everything we do is like, okay, are we trying to improve the onset of blood lactic acid, or we're trying to improve their threshold. Can they go longer, harder? These are some of the things we're doing, and training at altitude and integrating some of these systems and utilizing interval training, and again, monitoring their workloads and their mechanical loads, and again, physio loads. We can ascertain as to how far we can push them without them going overtraining, things like that. But I'm also a huge believer in team camaraderie. It's still a team. So we're at paintball, and I know I've been kidding these guys for a while. So they would listen, man. I was like the crash test dummy. I came home. I mean, they lit me.
They
up.
went after you.
Oh, it was like I think guys on my own team were kidding me.
I'm sure.
But it's still human beings, and it's still like you got to create within the realm of what it is you're trying to do. It's serious, and we're not messing around. But in the realm of you better have different ways to be adaptive and creative, so guys can get excited about the things they're doing. And it's not about. Here's the thing. It's not about what looks good or what makes you feel good. There is no way on this planet I want to go play paintball, really. And then go to the Manitou Incline and do it myself. I really thought I was going to die. But the only reason I did it is like, if they're going to suffer through it, I'm going to suffer through it.
Right.
Our PT smashed Red Rocks today. I'm watching the dude kill it, and I'm like, it's unbelievable, because we just feel that they're going to do it, we're going to do it. But there's a thought process. We don't just do it because it looks fun. And then the progressions we have at Red Rocks, again, it'll be changing direction, quick feet, slow feet, changing speeds, total power, things like that. So we have a thought process behind it, and it'd take you about 5 weeks to get to where we want you to, which would be our baseline thing.
Okay.
We wouldn't just start you there. And the only reason I'm doing that now is because I've messed up in the past. We'll rock 5 guys out and 3 guys. Here's the other thing too. It's ridiculous to kill your athletes. To come in and have him lunge for 3 hours makes no sense. Oh, it was a good workout because you can't work for a week, you overdid it.
Right.
Take responsibility, you messed it up.
Well, how do we preserve the Clydesdales, right? How do we preserve them and allow them to keep doing what they do longer?
I agree.
At the end of the day, they're special. They're genetic freaks. They're 1% of the population, so I always refer to them as. And I think because of that, trainers and coaches will see it as a challenge. Oh, let me give them a beat down. Let me give them a beat down of a workout, instead of saying, okay, how can I best preserve you to be resistant to different forces and allow you to play your game better? Exactly. So I kind of view myself very similar to how you do. I see a lot of my athletes, though, differently. I don't see them in season like you. But when I get them in the off season, I am a general physical preparation guy. That is it. My job is to bring the car into the shop and work on all the qualities of the car. My goal when I'm done working on the qualities of the car, when they go off to their team, is now, hopefully, I've given that coach, whether it's a defensive back coach, a defensive line coach, an offensive line coach, hopefully I've given them the best vehicle of that person they've ever seen, and now they can work on the quality of the driver. Now they can work on the specificity aspect. So I think, to your point, the best thing for specificity is play your sport, but you can't do that year round. So we need guys that get it, like you, to sit there and say, we're going to go completely away from the grid of what you've been doing, minimize some of those overstress injuries, have some fun in the process, and create the camaraderie in the team component.
Huge.
Now let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you that I'm so impressed with you. I've worked with pro athletes for over 20 years, and I think the number one thing that I see when an athlete goes from college to pros, they lose the love for the game. They lose a team concept feel. I can tell by how you warm up your team pregame. I can tell with the interaction that you have with your team. I can tell by the amount of attendance you have in your off-season workouts. Your guys, 1, believe in you. 2, they believe in their team. Love it. I mean, hats off to you with creating. You've created the environment. You are the thermostat that is creating the temperature of the room. So hats off to you.
Appreciate that.
And I could sit here and talk to you until the cows come home for sure. But I'm going to wrap it up by telling you this. When I got into the field, when I got into the industry, I started a lot like you. I went cardiac rehab route first, and then quickly moved into personal training. But when I got into personal training, your name was the name I kept hearing time after time after time of how good this guy was, how busy this guy was, how successful this guy was. And so to be able to sit here with you, to rap for the last 30 minutes about your path and what you've done, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for the industry, what you've done for me, and ultimately the information that you just gave our viewers. So thank you, Steve.
I so appreciate it. I feel the same way about you.
Awesome, brother.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.